Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third Ask the Expert of 2025. If you joined us for our last couple of sessions, we've been doing back to basics, and this time we're now going to do beyond the basics. So we've got our usual presenters here. I'm Richard.
And I'm Matt.
And yeah, we've got some great questions to go through today. As always, though, as I've put a message in the chat there, if you've got any questions, be it about what we're talking about or anything else you might be interested in understanding, do pop them in the chat. I monitor it throughout. We'll do an absolute best to get them answered for you.
Big welcome to everyone this morning. Thank you all for taking your valuable time out to join us. Hopefully, we will cover off all your questions in the session, and hopefully you will learn something from today.
And before we get into Tiger Prism today, we just wanted to do a quick hot off the press announcement. So this week, if you haven't already seen our LinkedIn posts, our announcements, we officially launched the Tiger Lens consultancy services. So we started pushing that on Monday this week.
Yeah, so just to give you a very high level of what Tiger Lens Consulting is for you, it's looking into your cloud spend and cloud licensing. And giving you clear insights to what's going on with the licensing costs and the cloud costs to hopefully save your business some money. So,
yeah, I mean, we've run this process through for a number of customers, and most customers were sort of finding in a lot of cases, more than 10% saving on their Microsoft licensing alone. So if you want to know more about it, give your account manager a shout. We're not here to talk about Lens today, but we did want to give it a little nod. So yeah, if you're interested in looking at that, talk to your account manager, please. But on to Prism.
Yeah, so today's session, we're going to be talking about quite a few topics. We'll be covering them in short, bite-sized pieces that we can, take throughout the hour. So hopefully we'll cover a lot and you'll learn a lot through it. So we're going to go through, first of all, looking at some more alerting. We have covered this on previous Ask the Experts, but we're going to go and look at, how to get the most out of your alerting. So we're going to be looking at things like alerts on numbers, looking at how we group alerts. So this will make more sense when we look at it. So if we're looking at, say, we want an alert for over 500 international calls, how we set those up. We've had quite a few questions about capacity and how we get alerted on that as well. And we'll cover very basics on, latency, or, it could be in your Microsoft Teams, you want to know when there's been a bad video call, for example, so we can show you to look at that.
Yeah, so we're going to do a few slides today just to start off so that we can kind of show some graphics, but we are going to then go into the system and show this live as well. But yeah, I mean, look, we had a couple of great questions in from Paul Briscoe, and he wanted to be able to easily see concurrent calls alert when they're live, and warm when it hits certain thresholds, and people calling internationally alerts. And I think that just ties it perfectly.
Yeah, perfect.
I think one thing I will say, just on the live comment, I think we would describe this as live-like. We do have a reliance on either the telephony switch or the cloud provider sending us the information. We monitor Prism closely, and I think it's safe to say we generally process things within 30 seconds to a minute once we've got the information, often a lot quicker. But we have that reliance on the information getting to us first. So when we sort of get questions about live, I think it's just worth understanding that we can't do true live because we have to receive and process the data first.
That's correct. So yeah, we'll cover off Paul's questions when we get into the live demo.
Yes.
So the other thing we'll be looking at as well is looking at how you configure your network to give you the most out of your data. So we'll be covering off this subject by looking at things like if your CDR source supports IP addresses, how you can use that. How to configure your channel group so you can accurately see this information correctly in your dashboard and reports, and setting your voicemail numbers. So when the flags for voicemail are reached, you can actually then do some reports on that information. We're also going to be looking at directories. So looking at how we can backdate information in your directory, how it shows history of a user, etc. So again, just looking at that and how to use it so it makes a bit more sense when you see this information on the screen.
What would people want to use that format, that kind of historic directory information?
So this is where we, as Prism, will, if it's using Tiger Cube, which is our synchronization tool, it will go off and synchronize with your source to update and create people. Now, if they didn't get added to your source until, say, 6 weeks after they really went live, it would get date stamped with them being added 6 weeks in advance. Now, you may want to move them back to the actual date they started to. So just by backdating the history for that user, you'll be able to then put them in their correct department.
So I guess if you're using it for costing, recharging, or if you're using it for performance monitoring on a brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, because what we do as well as, that type of information is that you don't want, the previous person's name against the extension number that they owned. You want it against the correct one. So just by backdating it, you will get the correct name. And by having the history, you may see an extension number appear multiple times in a report, which is correct, because if multiple people owned it over that period of time, you want to be able to see that Joe Bloggs had it between this date period, and then Sarah had it between this period, and then Matt had it between this period, and then it will break it down for you. So we'll go through that as well.
Okay.
We'll also talk about destination sets and why they're important and how you can use this. So destination sets allow you to label phone numbers so they can be more clearly defined. So for example, if you've got a whole set of numbers for staff members, their mobiles, people that you contact regularly, suppliers, etc., you can actually put a label against them. So you can either use it then in analytics to search for them quicker, or when you're looking at the reports, you can actually put the label against it so you know what they are. So if you're making 1,000 calls to this number, you'll know who they are quite easily. And this also really helps when you're passing it out to the wider business. Having a mobile number there and it's saying EE next to it, or Vodafone, or whatever it may be, doesn't really help. But if it says, Richard Burt next to it, people are going, oh, okay, so that's Richard's number, so that's fine. We expect people to be calling that number. Okay. And then finally, we're going to be looking at something that I find really useful within the application, but not many people even know it exists. So this is talking about configurable fields. So within Prism, you have on most items this thing called a configurable field, where you can input custom data. And this then becomes a centralized area that you can go and search for this information, you can export it, you can share it with colleagues, and it really just helps you be able to centralize all your data, and you can then also use it in reports or run in analytics also. Okay, so without further ado, let's put some of this into a live demo, and let's start with Paul's questions then about setting up some alerts. So alerts are all driven through analytics widgets. Now you can access previous alerts that are configured. They will all be down here in alert jobs. So once you configure them, all your historical ones will be stored under schedule and alert jobs, or over here on the left-hand side under alert jobs. But if you want to create a new alert job, what you'd need to do is come into your analytics and you would choose which section you want to be alerted on. So is it call legs, calls, or seizures? Now, as part of the live demo today, we'll cover off call legs and we will cover off seizures. So we'll start with the call legs. So what does an alert actually do? An alert will send you an email when a row of data appears in the window below. So at the moment, when there's no data in here, it won't send an email. So it will keep checking as often as you put the number in. And then when a line appears, it will then send an email in here.
Yeah, and we generally recommend not to go below 3 minutes as the frequency, but technically it can be more often than that.
Yeah, so it's however often you want to check this, it will then send an email to you. So if we want to search for, say, outgoing international calls, so I want to be alerted on outgoing international calls, what you can do is you will then build your analytics widgets. We'll say here, we want outgoing, so we can bring our call direction on, and then we can grab our call category here as well and say, we're only interested, so select none, when it's international, international mobile, or international free. Okay. We can then run this to test that it works here. So we can see we've got some international calls here. And we know that's now working. Great. So what we now need to do is schedule this as an alert job. Okay. So I want an email every time a row appears in here to let me know what's happened.
Or in the case of if to set this alert daily, it would be all the rows in the one
correct
one report.
Yeah, that happened on the
if there are any.
If there are any at that point. Now, in here at the top, these will be the columns that appear in your email. So when you receive your email, you can choose how many items you want to appear in the body of the email, and then it will attach a CSV file with all of the calls itemized. So if you're interested in adding in things like the calling tree path, for example, so the department they're in, you can drag all this information in. This is where, as well, we can add in things like calling custom fields as well in here of all these extra custom fields in here. So we can bring in the calling custom endpoint 1, for example, and this will become more obvious later on as we go through what custom fields are, how you can use this information as well.
I think it's worth noting as well. I mean, I've just put the link to get started into the chat. Our first webinar of this year, we did back to basics for analytics. So I think it was our first one or second one, but we did back to basics for analytics anyway earlier this year. It's worth going and checking that out. If you feel kind of like, oh, you know, we're sort of jumping around a bit here, go and have a look at that other webinar. Some great information on what all these terms that we're talking about mean.
Yeah. So in here, we've just done a search for outgoing and international calls. I want an email every time that happens. So I'm happy with my widget. I'm happy with the columns I've selected at the top here. I may not want ring time. Let's remove that one. We may not care about the currency code, so I can remove some of these ones as well when I'm not really that interested. I don't really care about the called person's name because it's going to be always international. So I remove the columns I don't want as well from the top.
I mean, let's be honest, what do people want? Who was it?
Yeah, who was it? Who was it? And what did they do?
Yeah.
Okay, and that will all come in here. So the person who made the call, the department they're in. And again, you may want to put these in a different order. So I may, you know, drag these into the order that I want to see it, because that's what I'm interested in. I want to know what department and who made the call and, you know, what they dialed. So once I'm happy with this, I then create my alert job. So I click on the bell at the top here, and it will take me into a wizard to follow the instructions from here. So first of all, it will just bring back up my widget just to show me what I've got selected.
The tongue live as always. There we go.
There it is. So in here, it'll just remind me again. Just a bit of advice. Next to the filters on your screens, there's a little I button. This will then tell you as well what's going on your filter. So rather than having to click into each one or hover over each one, this little I button here just gives you a breakdown of what's happening in your filter, so you don't have to go onto each one. Under details, you need to give your alert a name. So we're just going to call this international calls. Again, you can call it whatever you want. Now, this will probably be what goes in the subject title of your email. So the more descriptive you make the name of it, A, it will help because it will go in the subject of your email. And B, when you come back to search for your alert jobs, you'll know what it is.
So you could say that, I mean, I mentioned daily, you could call it daily international calls, hourly international calls. I mean, give yourself a clue, I guess, of what it is.
Yeah. So the schedule here is how often do you want it to check for this, for whether people have made international calls. So you can say, I want to run this forever, run it once, specify a number of times, or until a date. So if you're doing a project and you want to be alerted over this project, say you're doing a rollout of phones in a building and you want to know when people are started making calls on those numbers, etc., you can put your project start and end date. By doing this, you don't have to remember to come back and turn off the alert later on down the line. Just some advice in there that you can set this if you wish to.
That's particularly helpful if you're creating an alert for someone else who perhaps doesn't have Prism access.
Correct. Yeah, it's really useful. They're doing the project rollout. They know it's going to last 6 weeks. They want to be, have that warm fuzzy feeling that people are making calls over the next 6 weeks. So they want to be alerted every, hour just to say, that people are still making calls. There aren't any problems. Okay. It just really, it giving people the confidence that things are happening in the background. As you say, they may not have access to Prism, so sending them this information is quite good. You can also set what days you want to receive it at the bottom here and what hours. Obviously, you don't want to, an alert maybe at midnight to say somebody's made an international call, or on a Saturday and Sunday. So you can turn these off and set the dates and times you want it to run.
So what does that do from a behaviour point of view? So if I turn off Saturday and Sunday and there's 15 international calls and I'm normally running it hourly, do I get them all on the first report on the Monday morning?
Yeah, so it'll be the first time that it then next runs, it will then retrospectively go and look back and send you the ones for that period. So that's what it will do here. So if I turn off Saturdays and Sundays, when it runs at midnight on a Monday, it would go back and check Saturday and Sunday and send you all the Saturday and Sunday ones. Same as if you turn it off overnight. If you set it to start 8 in the morning, it would go and check overnight and send you the one 8 in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great feature. I mean, not everyone puts their phone on silent at night. You don't want emails pinging through all night, do you? So,
and you've got to remember, if you're not going to action it, do you really need to know that it's happened at that time?
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, this one we're talking about here, specifically, it might be a daily, is actually, and then they can say, well, I want it at 10 o'clock every day or every weekday, but I take your point that this, you could be using it for anything.
Yeah. So on regards to the alert on new data only, what this means is it will check through from when it last checked. So what it means is, let's say there's 100 calls in your system and it's checked 1 to 50. And then next time it runs, it knows that there's 50 or 105. It would check from 50 to 105 to see whether it matches the criteria you've set within your definition. So that's what it means, is it will check from when it last checked. So going back to our Saturday and Sunday scenario, if you turned off the Saturday and Sunday and the last record it got to was 105 when it last checked on the Friday night, it would go, right, I've now got 1,000, so I need to check between 105 and 1,000 to see whether it meets the criteria. Once it meets the criteria, you then need to set a success notification, so where you want it to go. So again, just some advice. If you have a email address loaded into your Prism system, if you click on the 2 here, you can come into here as well, and you can click in and double click on a person. It'll automatically then fill in their email address. If you're not sure what they are, that's how you can add it in there. Once you've then added an email address in, you just then follow the final steps in here. So let me just add in my email. The failure notification is just to inform somebody if there was a problem. So you'd normally put in your Prism administrator at that point of here. And
I think it's worth noting that if there's no data, that's not a failure.
No, that's not. This is a system-wide failure for that job. Okay. If there is no data, it just won't do anything. Okay, it will just silently just keep going until it does hit that. Then in your delivery option, in here, I talked about it showing you on the body of the email how many calls it will show. So this is where you can define this. So you could set this to say 20 or 10. Okay. Then the file is emailed. So I talked about it attaches then a CSV file with all of the calls in there.
And the headers in the
and the headers, yeah, you build them in there, yeah. And then you can give the file name here, whatever you want to call it. And again, when I talked about giving the alert name a reasonable title, it's because it's then used within here, okay? Then once you've completed this, you just click next, and then
quick summary,
and then you submit to create it, and then all of your jobs, alert jobs, appear under alert jobs, and under here for all of your alert jobs that you've created. And again, to access them, there's two ways to get to it. On the left-hand side, schedule and alert jobs here.
So I think just before we show another quick example, can you just go into the list of alert jobs?
Yep.
How much modification can you do once you've created the job?
Once you've created it, you can change the alert job however you'd like.
So is it the same wizard again?
It isn't the same wizard, no. What it is the wizard becomes tabs along the top here, okay? So it's not a wizard anymore. What you can do if you want to change, say, the column names that were in here, you would come into the job, you'd click on the definition tab at the top here, you then click the edit button on the right-hand side, and then you can just change all of your fields.
That's nice. And obviously, if you want to change the frequency, because let's say you set your alert for every 5 minutes and your inbox is just ping, 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 ping,
yep.
And you want it to say down that frequency to an hour.
Yeah, you just come into your schedule here. Again, you click on the edit button and just change your frequency here. The other thing you can do as well, if that is happening and you want to come and action it and update it and carry on with it, but you need to do a bit more research into it, there is the option to suspend the job. You can manually run it, or you can delete it as well from here. So suspending it is the quickest route to obviously stop it from sending alerts to you, or you can simply delete it from here.
And obviously from a permissions point of view, system administrators will have this by default. Can you share the alerts to sort of standard users as well, so that they can come in and modify them, create them themselves?
They can. Obviously, the problem will be is that you have this thing called a job owner. So the job owner will limit them to see whatever. They will only be alerted on the data that the person who created the job can see. So if, for example, I give a user access only to see development, and they create a job, it will only check the development calls. It wouldn't be able to see outside of their department. Now, if they wanted to, then the administrator could come and take that job, change the job owner to them, and then they would be the administrators that are able to then run across the whole business. So it's done on the user of the job, and they will only be able to see the data contained within there.
And again, if you want to understand more about permissioning, we did a session last year all about user access, so go and check that one out. All right, thank you. Let's do one more quick real example. And again, it's Paul who's asked, so I'd like to be able to easily see concurrent calls alerts live and warn when it hits certain thresholds. Now we're going to have to guess what the thresholds are for the purpose of this, but I think we can show it.
So what we would do is under your telephony, you have this thing called seizures. So your seizures run over a 15-minute window. Okay, that's the maximum we can go to. So what you'll have in here is every 15-minute window, this quarter-hour bin here, it will have your channel group number. So this is a defined number either by your PABX or by Tiger. Depends on what phone system you've got, and we'll cover this in a bit more detail a bit further along. How many channel groups are available? How many seconds that's been seized for, that channel group? What was the concurrent then max on that channel group? Okay, so in that 15-minute window, how many concurrent calls were active at the peak and there? So this is what we'd be looking at, is the concurrent max. So I'm going to go back to a bit of old technology here because the maths is much easier. So let's say this was an ISDN 30 and you wanted to be alerted when it got to 28 concurrent calls. That means at one point in that 15-minute period, 28 of the 30 channels was used, okay? So what you would need to do is you would need to configure the channel group name in your filter to say, right, I know my channel group name is that 001, and I want an alert when the concurrent max gets to greater than 28. So I know it's an ISDN 30.
Is there a percentage option here, or do you have to know?
You have to know the numbers in here. And then I want an alert when it gets to that point. Now, again, if it never gets to that point, you'll never get an email, okay? So if I change it to something I know that our system probably will get over, so let's say anything greater than 3.
So set it to 1, Matt.
Set it to 2. Ooh, set it to 2 in here. So in here, there you go. So we've got an alert. So between 2:45 and 3 p.m. Today, we got to 3 concurrent calls. Okay. Therefore, I want to be alerted about it. So again, then I would create an alert, follow the same widget, follow the wizard. Sorry, give it a name that then helps me. So I could say called channel group 001. Concurrency over 28 or whatever it may be up front.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
So that's good. And I guess the only other thing I want to talk about is that we've been in telephony here.
Yep.
Obviously, Teams is a big for everyone as well, and obviously WebEx and Zoom and all the other things we do. Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Different headers.
Just all of them are exactly the same. So I did mention this at the beginning. Maybe you want to look at your Teams media, and maybe you want to know when be alerted when the call quality. Let's say the audio call quality issues. When you want to know when there's got lots of call quality issues over here, you can just add in these here, filter on them, follow the wizard. Once you're happy that you're getting what you require, and away you go. So it is exactly the same on every single screen, whether this be telephony, Teams, Zoom, WebEx, Ring Central, it doesn't matter.
Very good.
From.
All right, thank you. So, a little bit of a change of pace. We're going to go on to our next question.
Yep.
From Clive Hodgkins. So this is keeping track of thousands of DDIs, extensions, endpoints, etc. Has always been a huge challenge, especially now with the portability of IP sets, soft phones, home workers, diverse systems. There's a bit more information, but we've obviously looked at this, prepared for it. Let's have a look at that if we could, please.
Yeah,
Matt.
sure. So I mentioned earlier in one of the slides about us talking about custom fields and how we can use that within the system to help us. So I'm going to go into the network section of Tiger Prism. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll have this settings here, and the settings allows you to enable a set of custom fields on each one of these things. So whether you want it on a number group, a CDR source, cluster, channel groups here. So I'm going to start with phones. And what these does is it allows me to create custom fields against a phone. So in here, I'm going to click on the edit button. I can give this field a name, and then I can choose to make it visible on my system or not. Okay, so if I come into here and I make them visible, or I come into here and I give this a field name here, so I'm going to create DDI number and I'm going to enable it here. So by creating these field names here on my phone section and clicking save, when I now go into my phones and search, at the bottom here, there is an eye that allows us to see additional fields in my grid section here. So I can turn on my IP sets, my soft phone, home worker, voicemail type, call queues, and DDI numbers. So these are the custom fields that I created earlier. And the filter then will search across all of those custom fields that I created, or you can go on to one of these fields that we enabled over here, and you can filter on them here. And then you've got the ability to export them to Excel and CSV over here. So if you filter on a particular field, it will export the grid result sets that are here as well.
So I mean, obviously what Clive's trying to achieve is use Prism as the master point of reference.
Yeah.
So for all numbers, telephony, resource management. So obviously by exporting that, it's going to tell you where they are.
Well, by coming into the phones, you now get the custom value field.
Yeah.
So this wouldn't be here if you haven't enabled it on the settings down here. But now I have this custom field. I can now go into these custom fields and I can put in additional information that I want to about here. So I can type in information on these fields, and as I said, they then become available for you to search and look up on the system. So I can fill in all these phone fields here. I can then click save, and then on my other screen at the top here, back on my other screen, if I want to search for, you know, who is in CQ123, I can do a search for that at the top here. It goes across all my fields to go and search for that. I've got all my information, and then I can export it. Now, the great thing about having it here is then you can give access to people to Prism, and they can do the searches themselves. They can do all the updates. Unlike with spreadsheets, then it's not auditable. So we audit all of this. We tell you who updated it. We log it in our system to say what they changed it from, and what they changed it to. You'd have the previous one that what it was changed to. So you've got this full audit trail as well. So unlike a spreadsheet where somebody sat and typed in all the information and you've lost all the knowledge of, you know, who did what, where, and when, we keep that full audit trail for you as well. So hopefully by using this as a centralized source, that will really help you then try and maintain that. Now, as a one-off update, so let's say you've got 10,000 of these to input. What we can do is we can work with you. So if you've got a spreadsheet, we can try and import these in for you as a one-off starting point, or, you know, we can just work with you, and by contacting us, opening a ticket, we'll see what we can do about trying to do these mass imports rather than trying to manually input 10,000 rather than trying to let us import.
I mean, look, if you're building a new phone system, it's fine.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we can't provide from the directory, for example. It has, because they're custom fields.
Correct. Yeah. But we can import them for you through our Cube application, so we can put them in for you. So whether that's maintained by you FTPing a file to us once a week, or however we decide to work with that, we can do this for you. If it's an on-premise Tiger system, then we can just connect to your data source and synchronize this as well for you.
I mean, Cube's the interesting point there, because actually, you know, whilst we do a lot of Azure AD linking now, obviously we've also got the flat files. So what you're basically talking about is you send us a flat file daily, weekly, however often you want, and we might charge to do that initial configuration, but once it's done, you'll send us a file every day and it will just run.
Yeah. So
perfect.
If you contact your account manager, if you want to discuss it or open a ticket, we can definitely talk with you about setting this up to do the mass imports, and looking at maintaining it possibly automatically through separate sources, etc. So we'll work with you and try and deliver what you need on that front. Right. But say centralized auditing, all these things that, you know, potentially are really helpful for you.
Yeah. And we just had a question come in for this. So can it sync DDIs from MS Teams?
At the moment, it's not possible. So there is nothing in the graph system that tells us the DDI that a user has. So this is the external facing DDI number to that user. It is something that obviously once becomes available, then sure, but at the moment, Microsoft don't advertise that number. The only way to get it is through a long, complex way in the background, which we can't get to from our cloud to give you that information.
We can't get to their information.
Their information.
So be clear, because obviously we can get to it for ourselves.
Yeah, for our company, for Tiger, we could get our own one, but what we can't do is we can't connect to the cloud with your details to get that information.
Yeah. Now, if a customer could pull that information into a spreadsheet,
yes,
we can
then import it
as a custom field.
Yeah. So you'd have to run it on your on-premise, get all the information, and then post it up to our.
Yeah. So I mean, that's worth the investigation on your side to understand if actually you can schedule some sort of export from there, where then you can send us that file daily, weekly. Yeah. Okay.
So just a reminder then, so you set all your custom fields under the settings here, and you enable these custom fields by turning them on here and turning off fields that you may not want as well here by just clicking on the I in the bottom right.
Now, what I don't see in this screen is any sort of export options.
They're up here at the top under the export to Excel, export to CSV.
Yeah.
So, and it will export whatever you've searched on the screen. So if I do a search for, say, CQ here, it would only export that one row.
Okay. So again, you then don't have to refilter in Excel.
It will just be there. And again, you can reorder these columns by dragging and dropping them as well. Okay, and that will be the order it exports them for you.
And obviously, the next time you come back,
it will save what you've selected on this order.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So on to our next question. So again, a slight swing change. So this one's from Karen Kluwer. So is there a way to export the call queue information of a number of attempts and who the call went to into a report?
So yes, there is a new, in a report, no, but in analytics you can.
I think when it's the word report, I think it means, to a CSV.
Yeah. So it's all contained under the Microsoft Teams and under the Teams queues here. And under here, there is a quantitative here under the queue agent attempt counts. So this is how many times a call was offered to a person during the time it was queuing in that part of the call. So where it's overflowed out or overflowed to different people, okay, this is the attempts it made at that part of the queue. So when I talk about overflowing out and into other queues, so let's say it started with QA. During that period while it was in QA, how many agents did it attempt to call at that point? When it overflows to the next one, it will be another line and how many agents it attempted. When it overflows to C, how many attempts it made at that point there. Okay, so yes, you can do that in here, and it's all done under the queue agent attempt counts. Now, just to make you aware, if you're using a broadcast queue where it attempts to ring everybody at the same time, this value is not populated. It will always be 1, okay? Because we don't know how many agents it's ringing at the same time because it's ringing everybody, okay? So just to make that clear, broadcast mode, we will not get how many attempts it made because we just don't know how many people are in the queue at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because obviously people have the option to take themselves out of the queue.
Yeah.
You may be actually during the day actively putting people in and out of queues as well.
So yeah, we just don't know that information. So unfortunately, that's not stored in here. So it's only when it's a round robin queue where it is attempting people, whereas broadcast is just sending it out to everybody that's available.
Yeah, and I guess we've done the first section today on alerts. You could actually set up an alert if it went to the 5th person, for example. So you could see what's going on here. Yeah,
you could get an alert, say when it's gone over 5-10 attempts. Let's go in there. So.
And I think that's obviously probably another good example of kind of where alerts come into play, really.
Yeah, so it's useful in that respect that you can get information about queues that get alerted to you as well.
Okay. We just went quickly back to the custom fields. So if you have custom fields updated by Cube and you add another custom field that is updated manually, I assume Cube will not affect these additional fields. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So when Cube is configured, it will only update fields that are mapped within Tiger, within Cube, and it will unaffect ones that aren't mapped. So if you've got 3 fields selected and you manually want to update the 4th one, we won't touch that 4th field.
Yeah, because it might be that you've got 2 extensions that you want that note on, for example, and it's just not worth the work to add it, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So one of the other things we talked about on the pack that we looked at the beginning, we're going to go through IP addresses in here and voicemail ranges within the network and why they're important, what they do, etc. in here. So IP ranges are only available on particular PBXs. We're not going to go through too much detail in here, but it allows you to put in IP ranges and allows you to assign a site to them. So if you're using a Cisco, for example, Cisco Call Manager, what you can do is you can put your to and from IP addresses for the handsets and what site they're on in here. So again, to create new ones, you click the edit button and you'd fill in the rows from left to right by putting the from addresses and the to addresses in here, and you would then configure the site that they're on. So importantly here, what we can say is that handsets within this range here are on our, we call it a site of VPN addresses. So these are VPN'd in, phones in here. And this then allows me to then go into analytics and search for the IP address site rather than knowing the IP address ranges in here. So by configuring IP addresses in here, when I go into analytics, so if I go into analytics over here, next, I can add in the calling IP address, and I can also add in the calling IP address location. And because I don't need to know all my IP addresses anymore, I can write, go and get me everything that contains VPN, for example, and it will then go and get me all calls made this month. From that location. Okay, so it will then give me all of those in here. So again, quick way of doing searches and making your data more valuable by adding in these locations to making it quicker for you to search within analytics.
This very much ties back into that question from Clive where we're talking about that master point of reference.
Yeah, so we put all this information in here. You've got it. You can then search for it in here much quicker. And again, you may want to set an alert again. Every time someone makes a call from a VPN location, you want to be alerted that that's happened. And again, by giving it these labels, by configuring them in here, we can then use that information in analytics to create alerts or to add value and make it much quicker to search. The other thing we talked about in the pack was voicemail ranges and why they're important. So again, within our network, what you can do is you can create a voicemail range. Now, the voicemail ranges allows you to set information about what your voicemail ranges are. So when you go and look in certain reports, there are additional columns that say voicemail. So if a call comes into your phone and then is transferred to one of these endpoint numbers, we flag it then as a call went to voicemail. And then over here, we have a thing called a threshold. And the threshold is then if it's connected to the voicemail number range that we've configured on the left over here, and it lasts more than the threshold seconds, we can say that somebody left a message. So there is no exact science with this to say whether they left a message or not. So what we do is we use this thing called a threshold to say, right, we reckon if a call lasts then longer than 10 seconds, we believe somebody left a a message, okay? Because obviously if it's 2 or 3 seconds, they probably listen to the sorry, I'm not here, and hung up at that point. So they got to voicemails, they got to one of these voicemail extension numbers, but they didn't leave a message because it was below the threshold that we set. So again, to configure your voicemails, it's simple. You click in the edit button here, you create a row at the top here, you say from and a date and time, you say your endpoint number that it starts with and ends with. Now, obviously, if it's, you know, your hunt pilot number for your voicemail is 7,000, then you just put 7,000 in both.
If you've ended up, because of system growth, whatever, you know, 6 different random numbers for voicemail, can you just add 6 rows in there?
Add 6 rows.
Just put the start and end as
the
like
same number. You can just put the same number in here. So you can add as many as you want in here. Yeah, it could be as well that you've got 6 CDR sources.
Well, that's also what I'm thinking. If you've got 6 telephony switches, you'll need to set one a different switch. And
On here, you just have to set the source.
I just think when people have grown and functions have changed, and you know that somebody's gone, oh, I could do the voicemail for my team.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that 9001 was available. You were using it for something else. So
yeah. So in here, you'd have to create multiple rows and then configure them in here. And again, once you've configured these, you can then start to use this information then in your reports to say how many calls came in, how many went to voicemail, etc. in that point there.
And I suppose as part of this, because whilst we are looking at we've set that 10-second threshold, you could also look at how many people didn't leave voicemails on the flip of it.
Yeah, so how many calls went to voicemail but then didn't leave a message. So yeah, it would say went to voicemail, say 10, and 5 of those left the message because they went over the 10-second duration that we configured.
Yeah, because I mean that could be more interesting. I mean, you know, if you're getting a very high hit rate on people leaving voicemails, well good. You know, because it means you've got the opportunity to go back to them. But if you've got a 10%, you probably don't want people trying to leave voicemail, do you, in that scenario? So, okay.
So the next part we're going to cover off is destination sets. Again, we covered this in the pack earlier, so let's go into a bit more detail about what they are and what they do. So destination sets, custom numbering plans here are allowing you to label a phone number with a proper description that meets what your business needs, okay? So under your custom numbering plans here, you click search, and you'll see that there are a whole list under here. Here's one I made earlier. So I'm going to go into this one here.
Very nicely named as well.
Yeah. And in this point here, it will say, right, here's the details. Here's the numbers that we've configured. And here's the labels that we want. Now, these numbers here I've made up just for our example here, but I will actually show you some in real world terms how it works in analytics. And I'll also show you how to import these as well, because you can import these into the system also. But what we've done is here, as you'll see, I've labeled it with the word TGR and a hyphen, okay? The reason I've done this again is for alerting purposes and for searching purposes within analytics. Because what I've done here is I've added a prefix, what I can do is I can come back into analytics over here and go, right, go and get me all calls made to TGR hyphen and run that. And it will go and tell me all calls made to those numbers and give me the names over here. So
it's like a flag, really.
Yeah, it's like a flag. So I've made it up by putting something prefix in there, but I then know what they are. But again, in my custom numbering plans, I could have TGR, I could have, you know, SUP for suppliers.
Yeah.
I could have
MT for internal, EXT external. I mean, whatever you want.
Whatever you want. Put it as, you know, these short little codes at the beginning, and then you put the phone numbers in here. And what it will do is when it sees those phone numbers, it applies the dialing code labels over here. And then, say in analytics, it then allows you to then search on here as well. So it could be that, you know, you want to add in fraudulent calls, for example. So you create a fraudulent list.
Yeah.
You import those and call FRD for fraudulent, for example. Then I can create a list, put FRD hyphen in here, and it will then send me an email every time it hits that.
Once you've configured the alert.
Once you've configured the alert that somebody's run those fraudulent.
And actually, we had a customer who did that.
Yeah, we did.
Well, it's still a customer. They still do it.
They maintain their list. They update it. Just so you're aware, though, once you've created these custom brands, I'll show you how to create one. So you click the create button, give it a name. Let's just call this test here. You come into your customer number and plans here, and then there's an import button over here on the right-hand side. Now, obviously, you don't know what your file format is at this point. It doesn't tell you. But what it does do is it gives you a sample import set here. So you download the sample input set here. You'd open that in Excel.
So that's going to give you a header order, basically.
Yeah, of what you need to put in.
Yeah.
You then update that, and then you can select your number plan here. Once you've updated it, it will then give you a nice tick, or it would then put any errors it's found in here. So it could be that there are duplicates in there. You haven't quite formatted a phone number right,
so
etc.
If it expected it to be a number field and it was text, maybe.
Yeah, it will tell you any faults and what line number it found it on. It will then preview it here in this window here, so you know what you're going to import. Now, when you click complete, you click submit, and it will create the number of plans.
Yeah.
Now, the next part is the important part, though. The custom numbering plans need to then be defined to a tariff, okay? Because you can have custom numbering plans against different tariffs. So it could be, I want a number plan for the US, which I then assign to the US tariff, a number plan for Dubai, so I apply it to the Dubai tariff, a number plan for the UK, I apply it to the UK tariff. So what you need to do is, once you've created these custom numbering plans, you must go into your tariff. You go into your tariff, you click the edit button, and over here, you then define which number plan that you want to use on that tariff, okay? And then click save. Once you've done that, at that point, any new calls coming through will then start getting labeled with those new labels going forward. Yeah. If you do want to backdate it to a certain point in the past, you'll just need to raise a ticket, and we can discuss with you how we look at backdating that for you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And we had one last customer question.
Sure.
Which is Robert Campbell. So it would be good to know how to generate call volumes and direction. For example, a call comes into the organisation and is then passed through many legs. Would be good to see the trail.
Okay. So this is all done under analytics. And again, this is the same on Teams, Zoom, Ring Central, whatever you, WebEx, whatever you may have for your source.
Yeah.
There's a thing called a call. So a call is an overarching part of exactly what it says. It's a call. So it's the whole overarching part. So a leg is an individual part of a call. So under our calls here, you've got this thing called leg count. So how many parts of a call are there? So for example here, this call had 2 legs. So from a business perspective, do I want to see 2 legs or 1 call? So when you're being asked the question, what are they looking for? So is the business wanting to know how many actual calls came into the business, or do they want to know how many legs were then subsequently created by it coming into our business? Okay, so by using the call, it's a singular thing. So that's what the customer experience is. When I ring into a business, I'm only ever making 1 call, but that could generate 500 legs, because I may have spoke to sales team. They then put me through to retentions then put me back to sales.
And it could be moving from one source to another, and that will be reducing legs.
Correct. So, but from a customer's perspective, I've made one call. So
if I just pause you for 1 second, sorry, Matt, I'm just conscious of time. So I know some of you may have to drop off for 11 o'clock. We are going to carry on. And if you've got any more questions, do feel free to carry on putting them in the chat and we'll stay here for as long as you guys have questions. But if you do need to drop, thank you for joining us today. You'll get a link through for a survey when you finish. If you could please fill out that survey, not just to tell us how wonderful we are, but if you've got any topics you'd like to see in future, ask the experts, that'd be much appreciated. But yeah, I've just seen a few people have had to drop, so I thought I'd say that quickly.
Yeah.
As I say, we'll carry on. If you've got more questions, pop them in there. We could stay all day, as you can tell. We love talking about this. So, but yes, thank you everyone, and do complete the survey. But Matt, sorry,
that's okay. That's all right. So the legs here, say, are the individual parts. So that's the question really back to your business: is what do they want to see? Do they want to see what our staff are doing internally, or do we want to see what the external welders experienced coming in? So that's the difference between the legs and the calls. And if you want to see the individual parts, it's really simple. The little burger button on the left then brings up a nice screen which shows you the what we call the cradle to grave of what happened on that particular call.
And what can you do from the point of view of exporting this data?
Again, it's just from the window here. You can put it in Excel. You can put it in CSV.
But will it show you like the individual legs?
It won't show. It just tells you the counts in here. So this is what, again, is trying to understand what the business requirement is to work out which screen to go to get that information for you.
So let's ask it. So let's say I want to do an alert for every call that had more than 10 legs.
Yep.
So you can see that in theory something's been passed around. I know there's always reasons why sometimes it's 10, but
yeah.
Is there like a unique identifier that I could bring into my display here so that I can really easily come and find it in Prism?
So there are two things that are a unique key, and it's always the call start. Now, you may in organizations, they may have 4, 5 or 6 calls that start at the same time.
Yeah.
So there is a call GUID that you can bring in, okay, which is the unique identifier for that call. Okay, so that is in the background, that is the unique identifier for the call. And if you want to bring the legs, again, what you would do is you would go into your legs over here, and you can bring up the call.
Yeah. So if I set an alert with call GUID, brilliant. So I've now got my unique identifier.
Yeah.
So it's in my report. So I've got a list of 5 calls that had more than 10 legs.
Yep.
How do I come in and just quickly find that within Prism? What's the easiest way of doing that?
So I would be looking at your dates and times, just searching using your specific dates over here and putting in the dates and times that you know it's happened. Because call GUIDs, although they're great for searching for really specifics, the date and time's normally enough to find what you're looking for.
All right. Hopefully, Robert, that answers the question. I guess that's maybe what you're looking for, is you're looking to try and identify those calls that have been passed around through the organisation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Look, that's all our questions, Matt. Is there anything else on the list that we wanted to just quickly go through today?
There was one simple thing in here that, about backdating and so on. So we did mention this in the pack. So in your directory, you'll notice that there are some dates and times over here on these items. If you ever want to backdate them, there are 3 ways to backdate these dates and times if they're not right. You want to put backdate it for to a correct time. You can either do it on the left-hand side by clicking on the cogs and clicking backdating here, and then you can set your dates and times, but this does it across everything, okay? Or you can click on your little cog, your little icon here, and multi-select items by clicking on here and then clicking backdate here, and this will then also move it back to the date and time that you select. So what we mean by this is, if I do a quick search for Matt in here, so I can see here, if I click on Matt here, I can see my phone number here, and these are all the phone numbers that I own. And And if I come over to the endpoint number, which has disappeared from my screen, which is endpoint name, sorry there, this is the endpoint here. I can see that, click onto this, and I can see where it was assigned over time. So I can say that I was in service management between 2008 and 2020, then I moved to sales, then I moved to development, and I'm currently in accounts, okay? But if this is incorrect, I can backdate and move these here. So I can say, well, actually, I don't want my reports to show up for these departments in here. So I can do it multiple ways. I can edit it in line by removing parts or changing my departments manually here. Or I can click on this and go, actually, I want to get rid of all of my history of this and just backdate it to a date in a past. Now, again, maybe in another Ask the Expert later on, we can go into this in much more detail.
I think it's a good one because a lot of people use departmental reports, and obviously if someone's incorrectly assigned, every month I bet there's people out there who manually move Jeff from that report to that report or that tab to that tab because Jeff's in the wrong place.
So we can talk about this. If it's something you guys are interested in, then definitely we can pick this up as a topic and move forward with it.
Yeah. Well, I think obviously we've got a lot of our content for our next Ask the Expert, which again, you're going to get that in the link. Please do register for the next Ask the Expert. But we can always squeeze things in, or it can be asked as a question on the day or in advance. And, you know, as you can tell, we sort of love getting into the detail. But right, that takes us, I've had no more questions come in, so that takes us a little past 11. So thank you everyone for staying, that's managed to stay for the extra few minutes. Hope you've enjoyed today. As I said, there is a survey at the end. Please do give us the feedback of what else you'd like to see. Matt's given you an example there. It can be anything. We're happy to include it in future sessions.
Yep.
And yeah, you will get a link through for a recording for this in the coming days so that you can watch it back. If there's anything else, you know, my details, Matt's details are all out there. Give us a shout. We have a customer success team here at Tiger. If there's things you specifically want to know more about, we'll get one of the guys in the team to get in touch with you, spend a little bit more time with you understanding your requirements. That's a free service as well, those conversations. So let us know, talk to us.
Brilliant. Thank you very much everyone for your time.
Thank you.
See you again.
Have a great day all.